It's just a work in progress, but this sort of thing. And I really like the sort of Persian elements as well. So it seems like Middle Eastern Persian sort of trim and features with the kind of the cloak and the belt and like the sort of the cowl.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Polygon Forest. I am indie developer Vin Hill, and I'm joined, as ever, by the other indie developer, if I can get my words out properly, Christopher Jones.
Hello.
Hello, and this week we are going to be talking about the game that shall not be named. Last week, Chris sort of hinted at it a little bit, but he's been working on something on the side, other than his normal game, Focus Find. I figured we'd have a look at it, see what he's sort of up to.
Yeah.
You might have noticed like these episodes are getting a little bit shorter because we're getting a little bit more focused. But yeah, I figured you could take the floor then, Chris.
Yeah, so I think now is a good time to sort of say what I've been working on just in my spare time. It's a little project that I've came up with the name last night, and it's not taken as far as I can tell, The Lanterneer.
Ooh.
And so it's a little... I know it's going to be a little action-adventure game, and I know that I want it to involve light. The best thing to do is probably just show you what I've got so far.
Okay, I'll switch over to the other screen then so people can see.
Okay. And it's kind of like my version of sort of Death's Door and Zelda games and this game called Below. I've kind of taken inspiration from all of those. And basically it's going to be an isometric view, so sort of 3/4 view. And you play... this is just a character that I downloaded from the Unity Asset Store, so it's not going to be a little robot. I'm thinking it might be like a mouse or something, but we can get into that. I'll tell you about the actual game. Yeah. So I'm going to have a lantern, and so the character uses a lantern and uses light to solve puzzles and defeat enemies. And I can see here that you've got a light also connected to the player, but you can't see it because it's not visible.
Yeah.
And so the player's going to move around in this environment. It took me a million years to set up the animation on this, but I'm really happy with it. So it's got the blend tree working, so it's like however much input you put in on the controller, it starts to move and it starts to walk slowly, and then the more input you put, it changes and the blend tree kicks in and it changes to a run. So I'm really happy about that. And then
I've got a similar thing on Long Gone. Like if you've got it on a controller especially, like if you're really like nudging the analog stick, like the animation is really slow. But then as you do it all the way, then he just like walks at a normal pace. So it's like actually responding. And the blend trees like help a lot with that in development, I think.
Yeah, and luckily this has got the IK animations. So when the foot is moving, it's actually moving the character along the way. So it doesn't do too much shuffling, which is great. So this is a little scene that I've set up where I put in some stairs just to test the character controller. Because it's the first time I've done a 3D character controller, and the idea is that the game's all based around light. So the character will be holding a light, and I want it to have dynamic real-time shadows. I've not fallen for a theme yet, but it's going to obviously be dark and gloomy, and I'm thinking to lean into that and have it sort of almost horror-ish, or at least have elements of horror, maybe like vampires.
Yeah, it should have it should be dark and gloomy at least,
Spooky.
like with. Yeah, I don't know if it should be horror or anything, like because you could get away with like quite a like.
It could be cutesy, yeah.
Yeah, a cutesy guy goes into cave, exploring,
and there's like spooky things, but it's like tongue-in-cheek spooky, similar like Luigi's Mansion. Actually, saying that, Luigi's Mansion 3. Huge influence because I love that game. It's absolutely, a near perfect isometric adventure game. Mario series, like they really nailed it. They got the balance of that perfectly, and it was entertaining all the way through, even though it was cutesy. So here's a little bit of code I did. Actually, you've just triggered that. I'll explain it actually before I do it. So I wanted to use the light to trigger things in the game, both passively and actively, and so this is like a passive. Example where, as you can see, the shadow is being cast by these objects. Also, I love the origin of symmetry album cover by Muse. I loved those weird sort of tuning fork things, and so I thought it would be really cool to have a room full of them making all these dynamic shadows. Anyway, as I get near this red spot on the floor, the shadow overlaps with the red symbol. It's actually not tuned perfectly. It should be more like there. Anyway, because I've moved the lamp position, and then you can see that the gangway sort of activated.
Yeah.
And then this is just to show that you've activated this button, which opens this this tunnel, and you can actually fall down as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to test it, because I was just testing whether or not the mechanics would be fun, and just to see if getting a character around and doing these kind of things would actually be interesting. Obviously, the animation's not working with that. I need to plumb that in somehow. And the idea is.
Yeah, sorry. Like, how are you actually like doing the light stuff then? Is it all done by raycast, or are you just doing it like these points that you've got on the floor? Are you just triggering it from those points, or is it actually working by the light?
So we talked about this, and I did look at raycasting, but I kind of I tried it, and it didn't really work very well. And I thought I could either lean into this a bit more and then get it to work. But because I wanted both passive and active things to be triggered by the light, the easiest and simplest way for me to do it is actually based on the fact that there are constants. Because there's so much things not known, what did I know? So I know that the floor level is going to be one level. I know that the light is going to be at a certain Y value from that flat plane. And therefore I know I could just draw a spot on the ground, so one coordinate position, where the lights are going to match up and overlap on the target. So the idea is that, and I can use ray casting as well. So like I've got the light that's working here at the front, but what I found is that by having a passive light, I could get the coordinates and I can get it lined up. I've moved the light actually so that it's actually not the right distance. But yeah, the point is...
You get the idea, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have spots on the ground, and those spots on the ground will trigger things. The spots will be hidden in the actual end game, and you'll have to find where to line up the character.
The right angle.
And the right angle. And so I know I'm going to have this sort of thing where I'm going to occlude light on things to activate it. I'm going to have cool dynamic shadows moving around, which is just really fun. I'm going to have some sort of, similar to Death's Door, where you'd be able to go up and down based on stairs and falling down.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to have any gliding or anything. I know I want to have like coloured lights, so like red, green and blue lights. And it would be kind of Metroidvania in the way that you'll gain access to the coloured lights as you play the game. And those lights will be able to get you through to different places in the map or in the area. I had the idea of maybe going up a tower. And I've been doing Midjourney to get some ideas for like playable characters as well. I guess I could show you that as well.
Yeah, because I think like the original sort of idea, which I remember speaking to you about it a while ago, which is this idea of using coloured light that bounces off mirrors that also reflect into other lights, so it sort of mixes the RGB values of those lights, right?
Yeah.
So if you like have a switch on the wall, which is like a purple switch, and you've only got a red light, you need to find like a blue mirror somewhere to reflect off that with the red light, and then it hits that and then like triggers the thing.
So you can go nuts with the puzzle rooms. There'll be puzzle rooms that can happen, and you can go nuts with that because you can have lenses that are static in the environment where they'll shine that light,
the right angle sort of thing.
But you'll pick up a little one throughout the game and slot it into your lamp and be able to change it. And then from the game below, you have a lantern as well, and you kind of use it as a gun almost as well. And I wanted to sort of play around with that because I want to have combat in this game as well, similar to Death's Door. So I want to be able to upgrade that as you go along as well. And I like the idea of like holding the trigger button to sort of aim the
Focus the
lantern
lamp. Yeah.
to focus the lamplight, and then also later on in the game to have maybe the right trigger as an ability to like send maybe a light wave out to kill enemies as well. And then also the fact that when you press the left trigger, your rotation axis is fixed, and that could be interesting in combat situations. So you might be fighting one enemy by shooting with a ranged weapon,
Yeah.
and then that you could get strafed by other enemies that are trying to get to the side of you. And I thought it could be an interesting combat mechanic using that. So you'd also have some sort of sword or a mace or something, some sort of melee weapon, as well.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that, like having the idea, like I've just been like imagining the juice on this, like call it like gameplay juice, where you're just adding like visual elements to it. But it would be things like, instead of like the robot dude, it would just like the little dude with his little lamp, like shaking, wobbling side to side as he runs through, and it sort of, shakes around. And then if you focus, then that's when it sort of concentrates and the beam is there, so you can look.
Yeah.
But then if you're not focusing, then it's just like an orb like around him, so he's like going through like the darkness or whatever.
Yeah.
So many little things like that. He needs a little cloak, whatever he is, Like I can see the whole thing, like that's it's that sort of juice that you really need. But yeah, the idea of having like a melee weapon or something where you're normally just fighting, then if you're not holding it, then instead of like him, when he's not focusing, maybe like hooks it onto his belt or something. He's got a sword or something to use. But the light is always present. It just gets bigger whenever he's like focusing it and moving it around and stuff. Like those sorts of ideas.
And that's what I was looking at, and also considering different options. Like there are a lot of things to consider, like how realistic do you have the light? Because if the light is a lamp and he's holding it in front of him, that means everything behind him is occluded. And how far do you lean into it being dark? Like, is it dimly lit, and then does it get really lit? Like, is it like below, where sometimes it's just totally dark and you have to use the lamp to sort of see where you're going and unlock new places?
Yeah.
I've been sort of considering those things. Here's an image that I made with Midjourney as an idea of what the character could look like. So it's like a mouse character, or it's it's almost like Sylvanian Families-esque, with the antlers, and then it's got a staff here because you can't get everything you want with Midjourney. You need to, it's just a work in progress, but this sort of thing. And I really like the sort of Persian elements as well. So it seems like Middle Eastern Persian sort of trim and features with the kind of the cloak and the belt and like the sort of the cowl made it with fabric. I kind of really like that.
Yeah, it's definitely got a sense of culture about it, which is the most important thing. I mean, like, there's definitely Persian elements in there, some Celtic elements for sure. But yeah, it looks cool.
And in terms of architecture, I really like the idea of like the Middle Eastern, those wind towers where they have like a tower in the middle of a town and it catches the wind and then it goes down into a channel and then aerates the cellar, and then the hot air gets taken out of the back through another channel in the chimney, and have that as a sort of maybe a focal point, like the character is somehow lighting lanterns along the way up this tower to light it for whatever reason, to like get rid of the evil or whatever. That was kind of what I was thinking in terms of the character. So I'm still in the early stages of concept and prototyping, so it might change radically, but I'm pretty set that I want to have something like an action adventure, like what's my Zelda, what's my Zelda, or what's my Death's Door sort of thing. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Just trying to take another picture of it. Environment. Here we go. So this is the sort of thing I was thinking of in terms of environment. So keeping it isometric, like caverns and drops, and
very moody.
Again, this is Midjourney images, which I was going to use as just inspiration, so nothing's concrete at all.
Yeah.
And interesting about lighting choices. So how would I light it? Would there be lanterns that I could light, and that would be it? You'd have to go and find the lanterns.
You'd make it like, I'm gonna like interrupt you because like you need to do this. If you have like a pre-lit environment like this, it's going to kill the game, because you're like, the whole aspect of it is like about the lantern here, like going through, right? you need like some form, like someone has to be special about your dude's lantern. Like the reason why he's called a lanternier, he's a special. It's a special lamp. It's a special light. There's something about the light which is important. And maybe like as you're going through, there's like these old crystals on the walls that used to be all powered by whatever the lanternier's got. So as he's going through, like maybe he comes into range with these crystals on the wall, and that's when they light up, right? So that as he's walking through, it's sort of, you know, like you're affecting the environment like a ripple of light, you know, because like the lanternier is coming through. But there has to be something special about your guy's lantern. It can't just be, you know, you can't just have like a flame or whatever, like trying to make it through, because there needs to be a reason why he's going through. And there's something special about him, and it has to be the lantern, right? But yeah, I would love to see that, like as you're going through, like the flames on the wall, like a blue light or something, like, you know, or whatever light you switch to. So you've got your lantern, right? At some point in the game on the D-pad, you're probably gonna be able to switch between different colors, and depending on what color you've got, like that's what the environment gets lit with, you know, like stuff like that.
That's interesting.
You could you could go nuts with the juice on that sort of stuff.
That's interesting, and then you could go further where it could have the crystal light or a bonfire or whatever, because that's the trope, isn't it? Lighting a bonfire that could emit that colored light, and that could be a passive buff against certain enemy types.
Yeah,
and so you could choose the color that you light the crystal with, or the bonfire or whatever, and then that could affect your combat gameplay.
Yeah, and basically you're just replacing the idea of magic with light instead, right? Yeah. So like a blue light would be a cold element, red light would be fire element of some kind. So if you're fighting against like a lava creature and you get the blue light out, it's just going to it's going to like start sizzling and stuff. So being able to, and then if you throw in like a bunch of them, very God of War-ish, you know, like Doom, that idea of like playing with the chess set, right? You throw in a fire monster with an ice monster with an earth monster, which would be like the green, right?
The green one, yeah.
Yeah. So you throw all of those into one combat arena, and you've got to now switch between the different lights, and you know, and like just having that, as long as you got it set up in a way where it's all systemic, then it wouldn't be a problem. But yeah, you could go nuts with that stuff.
Yeah, I could do. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about anyway. That's what's got my attention at the moment. So it's all early days, but I know it's one of those things where it's like I'm set on it. I've been thinking about it for too long, like I did with Focus Find.
Yeah.
And I remember the moment like Focus Find was like I couldn't get it out of my mind. And that's the state with this game now. I know it's going to be a character. I know they're going to have a light. I know it's going to be a lamp. Hence, I'm now stuck with the Lanternier. I'm not stuck with it. I have decided it's going to be called the Lanternier. And yeah, now I'm in this fun stage where, like what you've just said, where you just mind takes on a thread, and then you just see how far it goes and see what can happen.
Yeah, just live inside of that grey box. You know what I mean? Like that little area that you've got. Stay in there as long as you can. Don't be thinking about steps. Don't be thinking about towers yet. Like think about the design stuff. But
I'm just thinking about mechanics. Like what can I do mechanically?
Yeah, like everything that you should be able to do, you should be able to do in like just a void, like a grey void of like introduce an enemy in there, fight that enemy in that void, and as soon as you add like a set of stairs, like everything's going to change. You know? Yeah. Because then now you gotta like figure out like projectiles going up and stuff like that, and you know there's a load of like weird stuff, and funky stuff.
Well, I was going to create a few areas. I was going to create a corridor because I was thinking that the corridors could be where you inadvertently trigger enemies. So you're just walking around and you've just got your lamp on, you know, lighting mode, not on like forced, cone mode. I don't know if we call it that.
Cone mode.
And you're walking through, and all these like rock things are making shapes on the wall, and it's all looking really cool and dynamic. Again, just walking through a corridor would be cinematic in itself if you've got a dynamic light there.
Oh yeah.
And then you could accidentally trigger enemies spawning out of the wall by connecting certain shapes that trigger the enemy to spawn with the shadow.
Yeah.
Or the light if the light hits a certain place. So there's going to be an element of like corridor, like looking pretty and accidentally triggering enemies. There'll be a puzzle room element where you'll do puzzle elements in a room, and then there'll be like boss fights, like akin to Titan Souls or Death's Door or things like that sort of game. so that's what I was gonna. That's what I'm kind of aiming for. So I've never done a 3D game before, so doing the animation took a long time, and now I'm gonna figure out about the light and get the light looking interesting and seeing how that can work with the elements, and then I'm gonna get an AI, just probably an asset from Asset Store, coming in and do some fighting and experiment with sort of melee enemies, ranged enemies. And in terms of the design of the enemies, you and me have spoken about this before, and I was thinking of like ghost monsters akin of Eco,
Right.
where you've got, because you're dealing with light and shadow, it
That
kind of
makes sense.
fits, like ghosts that are made of shadow. But then I watched Nightmare Before Christmas the other day, and Harrison loved it, and I've been doing a lot of research about making a game specifically for Steam and what does the Steam audience want. And Chris Wachowski, the marketeer of How to Market an Indie Game, keeps talking about horror and how horror games just get more traffic. Steam audience love horror. They love the macabre and the whole range from like properly scary to just having pumpkins or a witch in it. It just gets this extra kick.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I've never seen, there has been a Nightmare Before Christmas game. It's really old, maybe like PS1 or 2 game, which is actually okay because the voice acting in it is actually really good, as you'd expect. It wasn't the original cast though, I don't think. But yeah, I've never seen a game where you've got whimsical, creative enemies that are almost the center point of the game. And I was thinking of having maybe a muted but multicolored color theme, because we've got colors in the lamp. I was thinking maybe having dark, grim environments, but brought to life by the muted sort of rainbow plethora of enemies that could be in the game, and they could be all weird and wonderful shapes and like spooky. But I'd have to dial that in depending on player feedback, I guess, and what got picked up on social media, possibly. Like, would scary work better than, would scary do well, or would like kiddie do well, or where
it's always tough. Like with, I mean, we've spoken about this before, but when you chase, because I don't know if like the horror thing is a trend or if that's like a long-term thing.
Oh, it's long. It's long.
But
it's not going to go out.
I'd be worried that like you get a year into this thing and it's like, horror's like trending down now.
Out the window. Like, everything's what would it be? Wholesome would be the opposite, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. I mean that's huge right now, but that's probably on a downturn. Like the amount of wholesome games that are out there now, it's kind of like how many of these things can you actually play?
Yeah. And in terms of me as a writer, I tend to write. I say tend to. I've only made one game previously in the making of, and that's a thriller, a dark mystery thriller. But then again, A Short Hike had this. It's a wholesome game, but it's got this really real, grounded core that's almost. Don't want to give any spoilers away. That's almost too adult for the aesthetic.
Right.
So, and it did really well.
Yeah, but did it do well because of that story, or did it do well in spite of it? That's
no, it did well. It did well because the people that looked at it and was like, "Oh, I want to play this wholesome game," were then moved by the story also.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it wasn't a selling point. Like it was cool that it was in there and people appreciated it when they got it, but like you didn't watch the trailer and like, oh, I want a dark, gritty, awesome story from that. Like that's So it's hard to use that as a selling point and as a point of as something that you should like pre-think about. But I don't know, either way, like you're early days away from that anyway. Like you shouldn't writing aesthetics shouldn't even be a consideration right now. Just live in that grey box, get mechanics working.
Yes, mechanics and grey boxing and having things that just look
my mantra.
Interesting.
You know my mantra
It's
more than anything.
Play well before you can make the game.
No, it's got to work before it looks pretty.
Oh yeah, it's got to work before it looks pretty. Yes,
work before it's pretty.
And mine is the opposite mantra. It's like
yours is like what the Steam customers want before I start making a game. That's
that's true. This is it. Yeah. I'm trying to create a product. I'm trying to create an IP. This is what I'm doing. I'm trying to create an IP because IP is king. That's what that's my mantra. IP is king, and so
Okay.
the IP needs to be good because there's too many indie games which are great games but just don't sell well because people don't see it. It's because we're in an imperfect system. The Steam algorithm is an imperfect system. It
Yeah,
doesn't
but I just
pluck
don't. I don't
gems.
think like the aesthetics of games really affect that, though. You know what I mean? Like either way, I like a great
Yeah,
looking aesthetic game is more likely to be showcased somewhere to get free marketing, but it's
yeah.
not like in an equal
Doesn't
system.
make it great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. In an equal system, if you put two games out and one is like looks great and then the other one plays great, you know, like which one's going to win? Yeah, I think they're both going to fail just as hard because like they're both
they
going
need
into
both.
yeah, like that's the
Yeah,
sort of thing. But like to me, if you're making a video game, like the main thing that should be important is the gameplay. Like people want to be
yeah.
like that's why I love Death's Door.
True.
It's not like I love crows and all that sort of stuff, and the art style is very cute and very
Yeah,
clean, but just the loop that you get into on that game where you just
that's
like
true. The
going
loop
around,
is
you get the dodge rolls right, and it
contagious.
just feels awesome. And you're just like, yes, I've got the timing right and this like crunchy, feel when you impact something. All of that, I think that adds to it. And I think that's why Death's Door did so well. But
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
You're right. It was
What
solid.
the hell do I know? I don't, like, yeah.
Well, I mean, this is the thing though. It's so contextual to the individual preference. Like
Yeah.
games like what's that Fox one? What's that one called?
Oh, Tunic.
Tunic. Like that got initially picked up because of how it looked, and then people played it and they were like, "Oh, this is actually kind of like Zelda-y. This
I
is kind of
agree.
cool. I
Yep.
could get behind this." And there wasn't very much Zelda-y type games, and then it got reviewed, and it got reviewed fine. But to me, I agreed with the critics, which were like, "It's just not a satisfying core game loop." And
Yeah,
to me, it wasn't. Like I just got a bit bored of it. It looked amazing. The art style, they nailed it. Cute little fox running around that looked a bit like Zelda, perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't like finish that game, and also it was a bit more difficult. So again, this is my what would I do game. So this is going to be, so the game loop's going to be key, but it's going to be like easy to learn, difficult to master. Probably a little bit more easier than Death's Door, because for me, I didn't actually like Death's Door because you kept me playing, and it wasn't until I got to like the third biome that I was like, oh, now the endorphins are kicking in because I finally got to the third biome, and it feels like an achievement. And then I started to get better at the combat, and because that sort of combat style doesn't come naturally to me, it took me a while to like get in the flow.
Yeah.
And then when you get up the chain at the end and you're walking around the ice levels and you're actually like bossing it and you're like, yes, I'm great at this. And you're like going around a tiny little corridor and not falling off the edges and rolling and dodging and stuff. You feel like a don. I want to have a different ramp. So I've got a very clear mind of what sort of ramp I want in terms of difficulty. And it's fitting somewhere between Tunic, somewhere between Death's Door, somewhere between below. Is sort of going to thread between them, and it's not going to be like any of them. It's going to be like my own version.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, either way, it's early days. I think
Yes.
like main focus should just be find the fun, and then once it's fun,
course.
then you can make it look pretty. But yeah, no, it sounds
yeah.
cool. I think I'll be interested to see like where we're at in like 6 months' time from here. See if this prototype comes along. But I know you're working on it on the side, so
it's on the side, so it's going to take a long time. But
yeah,
to get me going, because the thing with us with the podcast, we've not been doing it as much just because we've been really busy. So I need something to like G me up and get me going. So I'm going to set up a Patreon page. So I'll have people's money looming over me to get it done. So
right.
even if it's just you and my brother again and Rachel, at least that's 3 people going, okay, well, I've got to get this doing because they're paying for it. So I'm going to do like videos on there and set that up and have that as the sort of base, and put a load of YouTube videos out to do the progress. And I was going to chart it as I was making it. So as I'm designing it, I'm going to chart the progress. So like what we're doing now, I'm just going to be like talking about my thoughts and ideas, showing images, and just seeing what happens, seeing what sticks. And if people want to like make suggestions, let me know. If you've got any names for things or cool ideas for mechanics or themes or architecture that you like and you think would be interesting or would work with the mechanics, then I'm all ears. I'd love to hear it, and I'd like it to be a community project. That's my aim. I want people to be involved. Because I've not experienced that. Like Focus Find was very much just a solo project that got funded and then brought people into the fold, and it felt very much like I was bringing people into the world.
Yeah.
But I want it to be different this time around, just because, for no other reason.
Yeah, fair enough. Everyone needs to change pace. That's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool, man. Yeah, I look forward to seeing where we're at as the progress comes in, either on this channel or on your own. But if people do want to keep up to date with you, where can they find you?
So if you search for Acrylic Pixel, you'll find everything. So my Twitter, Instagram, YouTube channel, Acrylic Pixel. The Patreon will be it's inactive, but it's Acrylic Pixel. It'll probably be active by the time you watch this. So yeah, check that out. There'll probably be some free stuff on there as well, and you can follow for free and just pay if you can or want to and support the project, basically. It's just so I can be accountable, and then also probably just pay for marketing to get the word out there. That's what the money will be used for at this stage.
Very cool.
Because I'm working on a game and it's funded, so I've got a full-time job. So
yeah, it's the side gig. Yeah,
it's the side gig. Yeah, and if the money will be used, the money will be used at a later date for something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right.
Yeah. How's your game coming along?
Oh, awful, terrible. Like the worst thing I've ever decided to do ever. It's just it's not. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great.
No, it's going
and
fine.
On that note,
yeah. No, it's going fine. Long Gone's going okay. I'll probably give some more updates about that either next week or the week after or whatever. It depends what we're doing. And when we're doing it, and if we get someone else on the show to talk about their game. Don't know yet. We'll see. I know Sam Webster, who we've had on the podcast in the past. He's been up to some stuff.
He's got like a trailer out, like a progress trailer.
He's doing stuff, man. Like that.
Yeah,
dude is chipping away in the background. I wish I had like more time to work on Long Gone. I really do. Like it kills me. Like some weeks where I just look at it like I've put 2 hours into this game, but that's all I've got. Some weeks, you know what I mean? Like I just don't have the time. But yeah, these are the woes of the indie dev. But yeah, if you do want to catch up with what I'm doing with Long Gone, you can find me at Hillfort Games on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, all that sort of good stuff. You can go and find me over there. But until then, I guess we'll talk to you guys next week. So
I just want to show this cool little bug.
No, really? Is it a random weird bug?
Yeah,
it's one of my pet peeves. We talk about that in the pre-show. But yeah.
Whenever I click play, the light, because I want to try the red light, it defaults back to white.
Okay.
I'll show you. So I've got the light. It's red.
Yep.
Click play. And it goes white.
Huh.
And then I change it. And then I stop it. And then it's still red. That's weird. And then click play, and it's white.
There must be something in the code resetting it.
Yeah, must be.
It's got to be. Anyway, we're getting out of here. We've been going on long enough. It's been half an hour video. So yeah.
Too long.
Okay. It's all Chris's fault. He just rambles. He just never... It's just yapping and yapping and yapping. I'm joking. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys later. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.